Hello, and welcome to Gleaning the Scriptures. Today we will be gleaning from Matthew chapter 14. I think it's a good idea that we start in prayer. Father, I praise your name and I bless you. I ask that you take the adversary and move him out of the way. I know that the words that you have been speaking to me have been sinking into the ears of my listeners, Father, and I praise you for that. And it's known that when good things happen, Satan's job is to come in and try to swoop those things out of the way. Father, I ask you to strengthen my listeners against that swoop. I ask you to give them the courage that they need to pick up the armor that is in front of them, to put it on and to wear it with honor and humility. In the name of Yeshua, the King of all kings and Lord of all lords. HaMashiach. Amen. There are a whole bunch of rabbit trails and such today, and there's even little caverns within those caverns, and they're all filled with all types of jewels. And I've happened to uncover just a couple of them, and I'm hoping that as I introduce to you what I've seen, that you'll find even more than what I've seen. And I pray that you'll pray for me. At that time, Herod the Tetrarch heard the report about Yeshua and said to his servants, "This is John the Baptist. He is risen from the dead, and therefore these powers are at work with him." For Herod had laid hold of John, and bound him and put him in prison for the sake of Herodias, his brother Philip's wife. For John had said to him, "It is not lawful for you to have her." That right there is John. He is supporting his leader. How is he supporting his leader? He's telling him a truth. He's trying to guide him. It was not lawful for the king to have his brother's wife, and in having his brother's wife, he's living in sin. And we know what kind of a crop sin leads to, right? That's not what the king wanted to hear, and instead of acting righteously, he acted unrighteously. John got punished for supporting his authority figure. And although he wanted to put him to death, he feared the multitude because they counted him as a prophet. Isn't that funny? He feared that the multitude would do something if he killed John, but when he puts John in prison, he doesn't fear the multitude. Could you imagine what a righteous world we'd be living in if the multitude would do something about one of our righteous brothers being placed in prison? Imagine if they reacted in such a way that caused John to say, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, okay, I'll let him go." Wouldn't that be wonderful? But when Herod's birthday was celebrated, the daughter of Herodias danced before them and pleased Herod. Therefore he promised with an oath to give her whatever she might ask. So she, having been prompted by her mother, said, "Give me John the Baptist's head here on a platter." How morbid. And the king was sorry. Nevertheless, because of the oaths and because of those who sat with him at the table, he commanded it to be given to her. So he sent and had John beheaded in prison. And his head was brought on a platter and given to the girl, and she brought it to her mother. Then his disciples came and took away the body and buried it, and went and told Yeshua. What a sad day. We're going to backpedal here to verse 2. This is John the Baptist. That's what John the Baptist, or that's what Herod is saying. When he hears about Yeshua's power, his first idea is, this is John the Baptist, whom I beheaded. In other words, I've already defeated John the Baptist. He's not too little of an enemy, and he's not too much of an enemy. That's something that I can handle. And when he heard of the report about Yeshua, he said, "This is John the Baptist. He's risen from the dead, and therefore these powers are at work in him." All right, moving forward to verse 13. When Yeshua heard it, he departed from there by boat to a deserted place by himself. But when the multitudes heard it, they followed him on foot from the cities. Why was he departing? This is him departing, right? This chapter starts out in forward in time, at a time when Yeshua and his ministry had got to the ears of John the Baptist. Why do I keep calling him John the Baptist? King Herod. Herod had already killed John the Baptist at this time, and he says what he says, okay? And then we go forward a few verses, and we hear the story of John the Baptist being beheaded. And now here at verse 13, this is another time. This is right after John the Baptist had been beheaded, And Yeshua at this point had heard about John the Baptist being beheaded. And he departed from there by boat to a deserted place by himself. Probably he was going to mourn. All right? I don't know if this is in Torah, but Jewish people sit shivas when a family member or someone close to them dies. They sit for 7 days and do nothing other than digest and deal with the loss of their loved one. When Yeshua heard it, he departed from there by boat to a deserted place by himself. But when the multitudes heard it, they followed him on foot from the cities. And when Yeshua went out, he saw a great multitude, and he was moved with compassion for them, and healed their sick. Yeshua was going to mourn, and he was really trying to get away from these folks. But you know what these guys did? They went and they found him. And you know what happened to Yeshua? His heart was moved with compassion, and he healed their sick. I think that probably helped him through the process of mourning for his cousin. When it was evening, his disciples came to him, saying, "This is a deserted place, and the hour is already late. Send the multitudes away, that they may go into the villages and buy themselves food." But Yeshua said to them, "They do not need to go away. You give them something to eat." And they said to him, "We have here only 5 loaves and 2 fish." He said, "Bring them here to me." Then he commanded the multitudes to sit down on the grass. And he took the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, and looking up to heaven, he blessed and broke and gave the loaves to the disciples, and the disciples gave to the multitudes. So they all ate and were filled. And they took up how many basketfuls? 12 basketfuls. What does 12 represent? I don't know if the absolute base of what it represents is the 12 tribes of Israel. However, the 12 tribes of Israel is in the category of what 12 is represented by. Now here we are seeing a mirror image, if you will, of something that happened in another deserted place. They're out in a deserted place, there's a multitude, they need food, and what does God do? God rains down manna for them, just bread. And in this case, it's bread and fish. We're not talking about bread and pheasants. We're talking about bread and fish. And he feeds all of them by blessing them and breaking that bread and blessing them. Now those who had eaten were about 5,000 men, besides women and children. That's a lot of people. Okay, immediately Yeshua had made his disciples get into the boat and go before him to the other side, while he sent the multitudes away. And when he had sent the multitudes away, he went up on a mountain by himself to pray. And when evening had come, he was alone there. But the boat was now in the middle of the sea, tossed by the waves, for the wind was contrary. Now in the 4th watch of the night, Jesus went to them, walking on the sea. And when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were troubled, saying, "It is a ghost." And they cried out for fear. But immediately Yeshua spoke to them, saying, "Be of good cheer, it is I. Do not be afraid." And Peter answered him and said, "Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water." All right, we're about to dive into a cave of many caves of many wonders. We're going to start with Yeshua being able to command water. Then all the congregation of the sons of Israel journeyed by stages from the wilderness of Sinai. And Moses cried out to Adonai, "What am I to do with these people? They are almost ready to stone me, because they are thirsty in the desert." The Lord answered Moses, "Go out in front of the people. Take with you some of the elders of Israel, and take in your hand the staff with which you struck the Nile. And go. I will stand there before you by the rock at Horeb. Strike the rock, and water will come out of it for the people to drink." So Moses did this in the sight of the elders of Israel, and he called the place Massah and Meribah, because the Israelites quarreled, and because they tested the Lord, saying, "Is the Lord among us or not?" All right. Here's another time when Yeshua commanded water, not for his sake, but for the sake of the people. And remember, these people are unbelieving people. I mean, they are seeing miracle after miracle after miracle, and that entire generation that saw all these very powerful signs that weren't coming from Satan, they were coming from Yeshua. That whole generation died in the wilderness because of their unbelief. But yet he still keeps giving them chances. He does miracles to help them to understand that he's in control of everything, both spiritual and physical. Now, where are we here? All right, after leaving Succoth, they camped at Etham. I had this page bookmarked, and I'm not quite sure why at this point. It might come to me in a minute. Okay. The Lord said to Moses, "Why are you crying out to me? Tell the Israelites to move on. Raise your staff and stretch out your hand over the sea to divide the water, so that the Israelites can go through the sea on dry ground. I will harden the hearts of the Egyptians so that they will go in after them. And I will gain glory through Pharaoh and all his army, through his chariots and his horsemen. The Egyptians will know that I am Yahweh, when I gain glory through Pharaoh, his chariots, and his horsemen." I want to point out something here that's pretty important. This verse starts off by saying that the Lord said to Moses, "Why are you crying out to me?" Then he says, "Tell the Israelites to move on." Then he says, "Raise your staff and stretch out your hand over the sea, and I'll divide the waters so that the Israelites can go through the sea on dry ground." Moving forward from there, we have another instance of some water stuff going on. Let those things sink in there for a minute, and here we have another instance of Yeshua being with the disciples. This is a time when they had just fed a multitude, just like what we just read. And it's not a multitude of 5,000, it's a multitude of 4,000. And when he got into the boat, his disciples followed him, and behold, there arose a great storm on the sea, so that the boat was being swamped by the waves. But he was asleep, and they went and woke him, saying, "Save us, Lord, we are perishing." And he said to them, "Why are you afraid, you of little faith?" Then he rose and rebuked the winds and the sea, and there was a great calm. And the men marveled, saying, "What sort of man is this, that even the winds and the sea obey him?" You see, he calls them people, men of little faith. And then shortly thereafter, they start to recognize who he really is. What is the purpose of faith? We have another instance here that can help show us another few little jewels here. If you're picking up what I'm laying down, and this one is what is this one? Okay, this one is a little bit more forward in our chapters here. It's in Matthew 19. Right now we're studying Matthew 14. And in Matthew 19, there's a rich young man that comes to Yeshua. And Yeshua is asked, "What do I need to do to inherit eternal life?" And Yeshua answers, "Follow the commands." And Yeshua didn't just stop there. It's not follow the commands, period. The man answered with, "I have followed all the commands, all of them. What do I still lack?" And then Yeshua responds with, "Sell everything that you have and follow me. I don't know if you know what the point of the commands are, but that's what the point of the commands are. It says, he that knows my commands and keeps them, it's him that loves me. And he that loves me will be loved of my Father, and I will reveal myself to him. Here we have a rich young ruler, and this rich young ruler apparently has been keeping all the commands, so he says. And then there's Yeshua standing right before him, telling him, keep the commands, and come on. Take everything that you've ever earned, lay it down, and follow me. Trust me, it's worth it. But the man turned around and he left, sad because he had great possessions. And at this point, Yeshua turns to his disciples and he says, look, guys, it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than it is for a rich person like that to enter the kingdom of heaven. And then they're all astonished, saying, well, who can be saved then? Their thought process was still a little bit backwards. But Yeshua looked at them, and what did he say to them? He said, with man, this is impossible. But with God, all things are possible. Here's another little tidbit to drive this home. There's a man named Elijah, and there's a famine in the land. A famine so great that there's a woman with her son, and they decide that they're about to eat their very last meal and die. Elijah, his thought process is, God's got a work for me to do. I got to go do it. And he's looking for that work for him to do. There's no food anywhere, and he's looking for work to do for God. And Elijah gets to the gate of the city, and there's the woman. Hey, woman, you there, what are you doing? We're about run out of food, and I'm gathering some sticks so that I can cook my last meal for me and my son, and then we're going to die. What does Elijah say to her? Elijah says, go cook me a little cake and bring it here to me. And she does that, and then God provides for her and shelter and food for Elijah as well in that woman's house for many days. Now, what happens here in Matthew chapter 14? In Matthew chapter 14, I'm flipping back to, there was something important here, and I really want to find it, but something tells me I'm not going to find it. Anyway, I guess it's not important. Sorry about that. Okay. Verse 14, feeding the 5,000, Jesus. Okay, here we go. Now, Peter said to him, Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water. Okay? So he said, come. And when Peter had come down out of the boat, he walked on the water to go to Yeshua. Wow. But when he saw that the wind was boisterous, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, he cried out, saying, Lord, save me. And immediately Yeshua stretched out his hand and caught him and said to him, O you of little faith, why did you doubt? He says the same thing to them in the same exact situation. But in this case, Peter had made huge steps of faith. We're talking about Nephilim-sized steps. Like, we're talking about monstrous leaps of faith. And he still calls him, you of little faith. Is that because Yeshua is being hateful in any way, shape, or form? No, it really isn't. Yeshua expects a lot of us. And I think that no matter how much faith we dig into here on earth, we're still just gleaning the edges of the field. We're only just barely touching the surface. Even if we have so much faith that we're capable of stepping out of a boat and walking on water. It was only a few steps, and he did sink, yes. But Peter, a man born from a woman here on earth, walked on the water. And Yeshua still called him, you of little faith. And when they got into the boat, the wind ceased. Then those who were in the boat came and worshipped him, saying, "Truly, you are the Son of Yahweh." When they had crossed over, they came to the land of Gennesaret. There it says God. They probably said Son of Elohim. I doubt they used his name Yahweh. When they had crossed over, they came to the land of Gennesaret. And when the men of that place recognized him, they sent out into all that surrounding region, brought to him all who were sick, and begged him that they might only touch the hem of his garment. And as many as touched it were made perfectly well.